Welcome back to another episode of Charts Explained. In this video, we are going to be examining the relationship between Bitcoin's price and the M2 growth of the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the People's Bank of China, and the Bank of Japan. So what we can see in orange is Bitcoin's price, and down here in blue is the M2 growth, whether in an expansion phase or a contraction phase. And when in the expansion phase, we usually see as M2 is growing, that Bitcoin's price is also growing. But what I want to make a key note of is the contraction phases, or the times that the M2 is not expanding but actually contracting and going negative. In these periods where these blue bars go below this bottom line right here, as an example back here in 2015, usually it is in correlation with Bitcoin bottoms, which makes perfect sense. If monetary supply is contracting, then Bitcoin's price is also contracting, as there isn't as much money in the system as there was. But once we get out of this contraction phase and enter an expansion phase, usually that expansion phase lasts a while and Bitcoin's price follows suit as more money is entering the system and thus can also enter the crypto markets as well. We also see an example of this back here in 2019, where briefly the M2 growth of the Fed, ECB, PBOC, and BOJ almost went negative. It didn't quite go negative, it went down to a 0.38. And this was also near the period of time in Bitcoin's end of 2018 bear market, beginning of 2019, whenever it was just above 3 grand. And once M2 growth started the expansion phase again, we also saw Bitcoin's price go from 3 grand all the way up to almost 14 grand. Now, this was a huge expansion phase. Again, we ended up going all the way to, let's see what this high was, around 21.05. And after reaching that high, Bitcoin also reached a relative top. This was whenever it was first between that 50,000 and 65,000 price target. We kind of saw that first top about 2 months later in April of 2021, before creating our double top later that year in late 2021. But as you can see, once M2 growth started diminishing again, that is whenever Bitcoin's price started diminishing with it. But what's really interesting about this chart is once the contraction period started and M2 growth ended up becoming negative again, we saw Bitcoin's bear market, as in this cycle in 2018-2019, and also this cycle back in 2015. We saw the same exact thing happen. But this time, we went down all the way to negative 5.07. This was the most diminished M2 growth we've seen, but yet Bitcoin held up relatively strong. We didn't have an enormous crash. Yes, we went down from 69,000 to roughly 16,000, but compared to previous cycles, whenever we lost even a higher percentage, we did not lose as much percentage-wise this cycle as we did the previous cycle, but yet M2 growth was the lowest we've ever seen. But recently, we've switched back into the positive, where M2 growth is positive once again. And comparing this growth to previous cycles, once we start that expansion phase, from whenever it's coming from being negative or almost negative to back into the positive, we see growth continue for a relative large amount of time. July of 2015 is whenever we flip back positive, and from that point we had many months and years of upward expansion of M2 growth. Back here, whenever we were still positive but almost went negative at the lowest point of 0.38 in March of 2019, again we had many years of expansion following that period. And currently, we just flipped back positive in April of 2023, and so far have seen 3 months following of positive M2 growth. as they say, follow the money. So if we see M2 growth continuing in an upwards direction and their balance sheets expanding, we could also expect some of that money to enter the crypto markets. So keep watching this chart. I'll leave a link in the description to it, and hopefully you can again add that as one of your trading tools to determine what's next for the crypto markets. Thank you so much for watching.